Camping with a Skinwalker. For insane, true horror stories that haunt you forever. The campfire crackled, a feeble flicker fighting against the oppressive darkness that seemed to swallow the woods whole. It was supposed to be a fun weekend in the great outdoors, but soon transformed into something else entirely. Something sinister. Whispers danced in the cold night air, warning shadows stretching across the tent. They say the Skinwalker can take the form of any creature it desires. A chill danced down the spine like icy fingers. The locals had always talked about it in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously over their shoulders as if expecting the thing to leap from the trees. The stories were wild, surreal, making the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. But there's truth in the stories. The first sign of trouble hit when a high-pitched scream echoed through the trees, piercing the muffled silence. It sent heartbeats racing and fingers trembling. Maybe it's just a fox, one camper joked nervously, but no one laughed. The sound had been too human, too desperate. An absence of faith settled over the group. They weren't just camping. They were teetering on the edge of a nightmare, steeped in folklore and fear, the weight of ancestral dread thick in the air. As night deepened, the lights flickered, and shadows contorted in the flickering glow, almost as if they were alive. Leaves rustled, and bright eyes glinted from the dark, watching, waiting. Was it a deer? A bear? No one dared to look. Just the wind. Someone whispered, but their voice quivered. The firelight painted grotesque forms on the tents, spooking the kids, who whispered about curses and old magic. Laughter turned to nervous chatter, and then silence swallowed them whole. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, a rustling sound erupted from the thicket. An animal? Or something more? An overwhelming dread seemed to smother the group like a heavy blanket. The air vibrated, charged with unspoken fear. They shared frantic glances, their bodies poised for flight. The rattling branches felt like a warning, a signal that something awful was about to be revealed. Would they run, or would they face whatever was emerging from the dark? As the truth began to unravel, they realized one thing. They might not be alone after all. And the shadows, they weren't just shadows, something was hunting them. The rustling grew louder, branches snapping like brittle bones. Panic rippled through the group, the air thick with uncertainty. Was it just the night playing tricks? Or was there something out there, lurking just beyond the reach of the firelight? One by one, the campers exchanged terrified glances, a silent agreement forming. They had to investigate. Let us stick together, whispered Jenna, clutching her brother's arm like a lifeline. Her voice shook, echoing the fear in everyone's hearts. The shadows flickered and danced, casting morbid shapes on the ground, visually whispering secrets of horrors hidden in the dark. Against their better instincts, they crept toward the tree line, the forest's chill biting at their skin. Maybe it was just a deer, Mark murmured, though nobody believed him. The scream from earlier still echoed in their minds, too human, too chilling to dismiss. Underneath the thick canopy of twisted branches, the moonlight struggled to peek through, painting the ground in patches of ghostly silver. Each step was measured, each heartbeat loud like a drum. The rustling began again, but this time, it felt closer, much too close. A dry snap made them freeze in their tracks. Did you hear that? Tanya's voice was barely above a whisper. Everyone nodded grimly. The group huddled together, a fragile circle of light against the dark. And then a figure darted through the trees. What was that? Daniel cried out, his eyes wide with shock. The campers gasped, adrenaline gripping them tightly. It had moved so fast, they hardly caught a glimpse of it. A flicker of movement, a flash of something elongated and misshapen. Not just an animal. Maybe we should go back, Jenna said, her voice trembling. But already, curiosity had clawed at the others, drawing them deeper in. One by one, they pressed forward, despite the unease gnawing at their guts. They stumbled upon a small clearing. The moon bathed it in silvery blue light, illuminating something that made them all halt in place. Signs lined the perimeter, strange, tribal symbols etched into the ground, pulsating with an unearthly energy. "What the hell?" muttered Mark. Tanya knelt down, tracing one of the symbols with her finger. "I've seen these before in the old stories. This magic, dark magic." Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed from behind them. They whirled around, hearts racing, to find the tall figure standing at the edge of the trees. It towered, body contorted, the shape far too unreal to belong in this world. The eyes glowed sickly yellow, piercing through the gloom like twin lanterns. "No way. This can't be," Mark stuttered, as realization began to sink in. "Skinwalker," Jenna breathed, her voice barely a whisper. The tales were more than just stories. They were warnings, chilling reminders of an evil that had haunted their ancestors. The heavy air thickened with terror as the Skinwalker stepped from the shadows, its form flickering between that of a man and a beast. The campers' instincts kicked in, and they began backing away slowly, their breaths heavy and frantic. But it was too late. The creature lunged forward, its guttural growl slicing through the night, mingling with the screams that erupted from the group. Fleeing into the dark woods felt like running into a void. Panic took over. As branches clawed at their skin, they could hear the footsteps of the creature closing in behind them. What happened next would haunt them forever. But the real question was, could they escape at all? As the trees closed in around them, the heart-stopping sense of dread flooded their bodies. The night was just beginning, and the darkness harbored far worse things than they had ever imagined. Jenna's heart raced as she sprinted, her lungs burning with each desperate breath. The shadows swallowed the trail behind her, and the chilling thought of the Skinwalker's breath on her neck drove her forward. "Don't look back," she yelled, breaking the silence of the night that had been punctuated only by their frantic footsteps and the growls echoing from the darkness. "Keep running," Mark shouted, pulling Tanya close as they fled. But no one could shake the fear that their unity was slipping away, just as swiftly as the ground beneath their feet seemed to vanish. Every crunch of leaves and every snap of twigs twisted their nerves tighter. The pack was breaking apart. Daniel stumbled, falling to the ground. "Help!" he gasped, scrambling to rise. But the Skinwalker was closer now, a menacing silhouette merging with the night. "Get up, Daniel," Jenna urged, her voice thick with panic. She turned back, horror gripping her as she saw the beast lurching toward him, changeable limbs and shadowy fur swirling in the moonlight. A surge of adrenaline propelled Jenna forward. She wouldn't leave him behind. She reached for Daniel's arm, yanking him to his feet. "This way." But the creature, bizarre and relentless, let out an ear-piercing shriek, one filled with unearthly rage that echoed through the trees and into their bones. "What the hell is it?" Daniel cried out, terror-stricken as they resumed their flight, pounding through the underbrush. "An evil spirit? A shapeshifter?" Jenna gasped. The old stories echoed in her mind, tales of people who vanished into the wilderness, never to return. The whispers said they walked among the shadows now, transformed into the very essence of darkness that threatened her and her friends. With deep breaths barely calming their racing hearts, they dived into a dense thicket. For a moment, silence reigned heavy, suffocating. The only sound was the ragged breath of their shared fear. Around them, the world felt alive as if the forest were watching, judging. Then they heard it. A low growl, deep and throaty, and the rustling of grass, telling them it was searching. Tanya peered through the branches, eyes wide. "We can't stay here," she whispered. "It knows we're close." Mark nodded, terror etched in his features. "We need a plan. Run." Jenna hardly recognized her own voice, violently cutting off his words. Instinct took over as she bolted again, navigating the maze of trees, praying that the others followed her. They surged forward, taking sharp turns, dodging low branches and brambles that snagged their clothes. The moon shone down, casting long fingers of light that seemed futile against the encroaching shadows of the surrounding night. Their breaths grew labored, and Jenna's foot caught on an unseen root, sending her crashing to the ground before she could scramble to her feet. She felt it, a presence almost upon her, the air turning thick and rancid. Her eyes widened, locking onto the hideous face that loomed over her, flickering between forms, the eyes glimmering with sickly anticipation. The beast let out a rasping chuckle that echoed in the hollow silence of the forest, a sound that would haunt her dreams forever. "Jenna!" She heard Tanya scream through the chaos, the noise barely breaking through the cold shroud of horror enveloping Jenna. She had to move, she had to escape, but the darkness seemed alive, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Panic clawing at her throat, she felt time slow, the creature inching closer, the malevolent satisfaction radiating from its twisted grin. Just as the first tendrils of despair began to take root, a sudden roar shattered the night. The sound reverberated through the trees, deep and terrifying, yet oddly powerful. The skinwalker hesitated, drawn back by the commotion. "What was that?" Mark shouted, simultaneously exhilarated and horrified. The answer lay beyond the shadows, hidden among the trees. They had stumbled into something far more sinister than they could imagine. Suddenly, the night felt both alive and dangerously aware. "Run!" Jenna screamed once more, scrambling to regain her footing, but they had no idea what awaited them in the depths of the dark. What secrets lay hidden beyond the creature that hunted them? And as pressed onward, fear growing with each step, the sound behind them shifted, morphing into something they hadn't expected. They had awakened more than a simple nightmare. Whatever had roared, it was hungry. What had they unleashed into the night? The forest held its breath as Jenna and her friends raced through the thick underbrush, their hearts beating in frantic unison. They could hear the skinwalker's heavy panting behind them, a sinister promise of chaos and violence. But the roar had changed everything. It had sent the creature into a frenzy, sensing competition for dominance in its twisted domain. "Keep moving!" Mark shouted, struggling to maintain his grip on Tanya's hand as they veered sharply around another tree. The scent of wet earth and decay pierced Jenna's senses, mixing with the adrenaline surging through her veins. She felt the dread taking root in her chest like a weed, but she couldn't stop. Fear spurred her onward, breathless, relentless. For a moment, they ran in silence, the sounds of their footfalls muffled by the enveloping darkness. The earlier sounds, the growls, the rustling, had faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that magnified the pulsing rhythm of their hearts. It felt wrong, too quiet, like a pause before a storm. "What are we doing?" Daniel gasped, his voice strained, panic and hopelessness etched across his face. "We can't outrun whatever that is." Jenna rounded on him, desperation coursing through her. "We need to find somewhere safe. We can't just give up." The words tasted bitter, stinging in her mouth. Deep inside, they all felt the pull of despair. Just then, a bone-chilling howl erupted from somewhere beyond the trees, a call that sent shivers skittering down Jenna's spine. It was close, too close. The skinwalker had summoned something worse. "Did you hear that?" Tanya's eyes were wide with terror. "We're not alone." "Simon," Mark urged, and with every ounce of strength, they surged forward again. But their unity was fraying. One by one, it felt as though fear was consuming them, clouding their judgment. Suddenly, a sickening crash echoed through the woods, branches snapping like dry twigs, followed by an unsettling growl that resonated in Jenna's bones. It was louder, fiercer. Whatever danger they had evoked was multiplying. Panic spread like wildfire among the group. "We need to split up." Mark's suggestion came as a shock. "It'll be harder for it to track us." "Are you insane?" Jenna's stomach turned. "That's exactly what it wants. It's our only chance." He insisted, urging them to make a choice. The situation had spiraled far beyond their comprehension, and survival took precedence over unity. A vote was rendered. "Fine," Daniel shouted, breaking the cycle of doubt. "I'll go left. The rest of you head right." "No," Tanya cried, but Daniel was already moving, darting into the shadows. Within moments, he was swallowed by the darkness, leaving a void heavy with what-ifs. "Let us go now," Mark commanded. With a racing heart, Jenna grabbed Tanya's hand, their feet pounding against the dirt as they fled down the trail. Each leaf snapped underfoot sent anxious glances over their shoulders, bracing for the familiar sound of pursuit. But just as hope began to flicker fueling their sprint, something massive shattered through the underbrush behind them. They turned, terror frozen in their throats as they caught a glimpse. Shapes twisted in the blackness, strands of gold and brown lit briefly by the moon, melding into one terrifying form. The creature was colossal, more monstrous than the Skinwalker, a predator like they'd never seen. It snarled, baring teeth far too large for any earthly beast. "Jenna, run!" Mark yelled, instinct kicking in. They stumbled forward again, but the path seemed to narrow, the tangle of trees closing in as they tried to find their feet. The ground quaked with heavy strides approaching them, each reverberation sparking new terror in their hearts. The night engulfed them, and they had no idea where they were going or what hunted them now. Then silence fell once more, the heavy expectations of the dark resting like lead weights. The shadows around them shifted, as if deciding their fate. They were lost in a nightmare of their own making, and the air thickened with something vile. The looming fear whispered to them, promising something. Dark and unnameable lay ahead, waiting in the depths. As Jenna turned to Mark and Tanya, her heart ached with an unbearable weight. "What is that thing?" she whispered, dread creeping in. And just as a whisper of hope, an echo of recognition flashed in Marcus' eyes, and Jenna knew then they weren't just running from a monster. They had become part of a twisted tale woven by the forest itself. What they had awakened would pay no mercy, and the final trap was about to close in. But would they survive long enough to comprehend the truth of what was lurking, hidden behind every shadow? The silence shattered as they bolted deeper into the forest. Jenna felt her feet pounding the earth, a frantic rhythm that merged with the frantic beat of her heart. She shot a glance back, just in time to see a shadow burst from the underbrush. It blazed with animalistic fury, eyes glowing like embers in the dark. "What is it?" Tanya shrieked, terror ripping through her voice. "It doesn't matter. Just keep running." Marcus' voice was strained, desperate, as he tugged them onward. Every fiber in Jenna's body screamed to turn around, to face their pursuer. But she resisted. They had already lost Daniel. She wouldn't let them lose anyone else. They rounded a bend, the forest thickening around them, trees closing in like giants drawing a breath. The air turned dense and stale, clinging to Jenna's lungs. For a moment, panic spiraled in her chest. What had they stumbled into? A maze of malevolence? "Where do we go?" Tanya gasped, her breath hitching. Frantic eyes searched the darkness for a way out, but all she saw were shadows that danced mockingly at the edge of her vision. "Maybe up," Mark proposed, pointing toward low-hanging branches. "We can climb." Without waiting for a response, he was scrambling toward a sturdy tree, limbs stretching invitingly above. Jenna hesitated. What if they got trapped up there? But the approaching growls, dark and ominous, pushed her. She joined him, Tanya reluctantly following, her face pale with fear as the three of them clambered up. Jenna glanced down, wishing she hadn't below. Figures shifted in the shadows, shapes that morphed and twisted, each one more grotesque than the last. They were watching, waiting. Her stomach churned. "Get up higher," Mark hissed, urging them on. Branches scraped against Jenna's skin as she climbed, clawing at her like an inching dread. Finally, they perched on a thick branch, heartbeats synchronized in panic. Adrenaline coursed through her body like wildfire. Above, the sky was a blanket of stars. Below, it felt like the forest had melted into chaos. With a sudden shift, the ground trembled. The monster, the one they had glimpsed earlier, broke through the underbrush. Its massive frame was cloaked in shadow, muscles rippling under a pelt like matted fur. It scanned the area, nostrils flaring, searching. Jenna felt the weight of its gaze and gulped down the bile rising in her throat. "Do you think it saw us?" Tanya whispered, clutching Mark's arm tightly. The fear in her voice was palpable, echoing Jenna's own dread. Stay still, Mark whispered urgently, it's hunting. We can't make a sound. From their high vantage point, they held their breath, the creature looming closer, every growl vibrating through the air like an electric charge. The sounds of the forest felt muted, as though the world were holding its breath. Jenna's hands trembled against the rough bark of the branch. It lunged. Branches snapped beneath its brutal weight, sending leaves sifting to the ground like confetti. The snarling beasts surrounding it echoed in a cacophony of hunger. The horrifying realization clawed at Jenna. There were more than one. They were surrounded. Panic surged again, hotter this time. What do we do? Jenna's mind raced, scrambling for a solution. Suddenly, a jagged bark ripped through the air, a horrible sound pouring from the mouths below. It echoed off the trees, drowning any semblance of hope. The dreadful thought hit her like a stone. Was this the end? Would they become part of the tale that haunted the forest? As the growls intensified, something inside Jenna snapped. The urge to survive overruled her fear. We need to find a way down. Now. Mark and Tanya exchanged frantic glances. Every second counted, and they were running out of options. The creatures below were erupting into a frenzy, eyes flashing, growls escalating to a blood-chilling roar. But just as Mark opened his mouth to respond, a sudden light flickered in the tree too far in the distance, too faint. Is that a fire? He whispered incredulously. Hope danced briefly in Jenna's chest, but just as quickly it vanished. What if it's a trap? She gasped, gripping the branch tighter. Right now, we need to find out. It's our only chance. Mark responded, determination lining his voice. They hesitated, the decision hanging heavy in the air. But just as they began to move, a new sound emerged, a chilling howl that sliced through the night, louder than before. The creature's eyes shifted towards them, and instinct kicked in. It was no longer a matter of choice. They had to jump. On 3, 1, 2, 3. And with that, they leaped into the chaos below. But what awaited them would challenge everything they thought they knew about the night and its secrets. Had they truly escaped the monsters, or had they stepped into something far worse? As the darkness enveloped them, Jenna couldn't shake the thought, would they find salvation or dive deeper into the horror? The ground rushed up to meet them, vibrant chaos spinning in a blur. Jenna's heart slammed in her chest, every instinct telling her to scream. But she kept it locked inside, fearing that sound would attract the creatures lurking just beyond sight. They hit the ground hard, Jenna's legs buckling beneath her, pain shooting through her knees. Get up. Move. Mark's voice shattered the stillness, dragging her out of the daze. They stumbled toward the flickering light, the distant fire promising safety or maybe just a different kind of danger. Branches clawed at them as they raced through the underbrush, tree limbs snapping back like angry hands. Jenna felt the weight of the shadows behind them, the relentless growls merging with the crackling of the forest, the eerie echo chasing them. She forced herself to push harder, ignoring the pain, the exhaustion. This was survival. Over here. Mark's voice cut through the thick fog of fear as they stumbled into a small clearing. The fire danced like a flirtatious lover, orange flames biting at the darkness. Shadows flickered across the trees, but Jenna didn't care. The heat was welcoming, the light a beacon in this nightmare. But just as relief began to wash over her, a movement at the edge of the clearing snapped her back to the moment. A figure stood there, tall and hunched, cloaked in darkness. Jenna's breath caught. Was it a person, or something worse? Who's there? Mark demanded, voice trembling but firm. Easy, Mark, Tanya whispered, her eyes wide as she strained to see the figure. Jenna squinted, heart racing. The firelight revealed more than she expected. Torn clothing dangled from the stranger's limbs, skin streaked with dirt and blood. That face was half hidden in shadow, but Jenna could see enough to feel the panic rising again. Show yourself, Mark yelled, stepping forward, protective instinct igniting. The figure shifted, stepping closer, and a shiver danced along Jenna's spine as recognition hit her. It was Daniel, but his eyes were wild, flitting around in pure frenzy, like a deer caught in headlights. Daniel? Jenna called, disbelief coursing through her. Stay back. he shouted, raising his arms defensively. You shouldn't have come. You have to leave. Why? What happened? Tanya pleaded, taking small steps forward, but Daniel recoiled further. They don't want you here. His voice was desperate, filled with an urgency that twisted the knife of fear deeper. It's too late, I've seen it. Just run while you can. What have you seen? Mark's voice cracked. But before Daniel could respond, a guttural growl echoed through the trees, sending a fresh wave of dread crashing over Jenna. The shadows shifted, restless, lurking, revealing twisted figures just beyond the firelight. Oh God, Tanya breathed, pressing closer to Jenna. As they all turned towards the sound, dark shapes crept into the clearing, a pack of twisted creatures illuminated by the orange flames, their eyes gleaming with primal hunger, the same eyes that had hunted them. Daniel, Mark shouted, desperation in his tone. What are they? We need to know. But before Daniel could begin to answer, a piercing shriek cut through the night, high-pitched and horrifying. It echoed across their surroundings, and the creatures snarled in response, their attention shifting. Run! Daniel screamed just as the first creature lunged toward him, jaws wide and eyes blazing. In an instant, Jenna, Mark, and Tanya shot into motion, scrambling back into the trees as chaos erupted behind them. The fire flickered dangerously, casting eerie shadows across the forest floor, reflecting the terror in Jenna's heart. Where do we go? Tanya's breath came in quick gasps, fear lacing her words as they tore away from the clearing. Anywhere but here, Mark shouted, pushing through the branches as they absorbed the gravity of their situation. But Jenna knew, deep down in that terrified gut, that whatever pursued them wasn't just a monster. It knew them. It knew their fears. And in that moment, on the edge of a nightmare, she asked herself a chilling question that froze her. Blood. What if they weren't just hunting her but were hunting for something deeper within? As the shadows enveloped them, Jenna looked back toward the clearing, dread coiling tight within her. What had Daniel seen? And had they truly escaped? Or had they only begun to awaken something that was better left buried? Branches whipped against Jenna's face as they stumbled deeper into the forest, the sounds of pursuit trailing behind them. Every crackle and rustle sent a shiver down her spine. The adrenaline pumped fiercely in her veins, urging her on, even as exhaustion clawed at her limbs. She could hardly keep pace with Mark and Tanya, who were a few feet ahead. Don't stop, just keep going, Mark shouted, his voice hoarse, while glancing over his shoulder. Fear flickered across his features, and Jenna's heart sank at the sight. In this endless dark, they were vulnerable like prey in the most primal form. Where are we even going? Tanya gasped, her breath uneven, panic lacing her tone. What if we just run in circles? Then we'll circle back and fight. Mark shot back, determination hardening his voice. But Jenna wasn't so sure. Fighting against these creatures? How could they possibly face something that was born from nightmares? The growls grew louder. Claws scraped against tree bark, echoing a sinister rhythm that matched the frantic beating of her heart. The creatures were playing with them, drawing them deeper into the dark. Jenna's hands trembled, and she fought against the rising tide of despair. Then, a flicker of movement to their left. There, she pointed, her voice barely a whisper, as a flash of white darted between the trunks. What? Mark turned his head, and for a brief moment, hope pierced the dread. Maybe it's a way out. Tanya's eyes widened. Maybe no. Mark interrupted sharply. We stick together. No splitting up. But it felt wrong, like the forest had a pulse that beckoned them toward that fleeting image. Yet Jenna didn't dare speak up. They had to keep moving, keep running. Suddenly, a twisted shriek ripped through the air, chilling Jenna to her bones. It was the sound of pure malice, a cry that promised pain. The forest came alive with a tension that wrapped around her throat, making it hard to breathe. The creatures were drawing nearer, and Jenna could feel them closing in, like shadows converging around a helpless flame. Keep going, Mark shouted, his voice cracking under the strain as they stumbled past a thicket. Jenna felt something brush against her arm. She cried out, spinning around. It was just a branch, jagged and menacing in the low light. The shadows danced around them, teasing her thoughts, whispering doubts into her mind. What if they didn't make it? What if this was it? Wait, Tanya stopped abruptly, eyes wide. What if Daniel was right? What if we shouldn't be here? What are you saying? Mark shot back, panic flaring in his eyes. I mean, Tanya hesitated, her breath hitching. What if this forest is alive? What if it's watching us? You're not being serious, Mark said, his voice laced with anger and fear. But Jenna felt it too, an unease curling inside her gut. It was like the forest was aware of them, judging their movements. The very trees seemed to shift, leaning closer as if eavesdropping on their fear. Another roar echoed overhead, the air thick with terror. Now please, can we just go? Jenna begged, more to herself than anyone else. She took a tentative step forward but suddenly stopped, frozen in place in front of them. The darkness shifted as shapes emerged, slinking closer. They were the same creatures from the clearing, twisted forms emerging like shadows from a nightmare. And Jenna felt the pull, the sickening urge to run while knowing they were surrounded. Marcus' grip tightened around her wrist. On 3, we run. But before he could count, the growls became chatter, a guttural language that rippled through the night, revealing a chilling realization. They weren't just beasts. They were something else entirely more. Tanya's voice trembled, and Jenna turned to see Tanya clutching her arm, eyes wide in horror. What if they're here for us? What if they know? The realization sent a fresh wave of dread crashing over Jenna. What if they weren't just hunting for their lives? What if they sought to claim something much darker, something buried deep inside each of them? As Jenna met the piercing eyes of the creatures, she understood that their survival was no longer just a race against the clock. It was a battle against their own darkest fears. What now? Jenna whispered, heart pounding like a drum. Marcus' eyes were steely. Now we fight, or we die trying. The wind howled through the trees, a ghostly wail that carried their fate into the night, as shadows continued to close in. But Jenna felt something shift and echo in her mind. The scream of the forest, the twisted shadows, they were trying to tell her something. Just before the darkness engulfed them, she grasped the truth. The monsters might hold the key, but would they dare seek it? And could they confront the inner demons that had followed them here? Jenna's breath caught once more as she faced the monsters head-on, heart racing with a new question. What lay hidden inside them, waiting to be unleashed? The shadows twisted closer, their forms flickering like flames in the night. Jenna's senses were screaming at her, urging her to flee. But something deeper pulled her in an inexplicable urge to confront what lay before them. Mark, hold on, she breathed, not knowing if she was asking him to pause or just to breathe. In that moment, the world around them quieted, the forest pausing as if it sensed something monumental about to occur. The creatures shifted again, their grotesque shapes barely holding onto the remnants of humanity. Bone-deep growls erupted, every sound seeming to resonate from within the very earth. Jenna's heart raced, pounding against her ribs as an uncomfortable tension gripped her belly. With a sudden jolt, one of the creatures lunged forward, its eyes reflecting a ghastly glow. It paused, nostrils flaring as it seemed to assess them, its gaze settling on Jenna with a chilling intensity. In that moment, she felt a connection, an understanding that transcended the horror of the situation. Fight, now, Mark shouted, breaking the spell. He bolted forward, brandishing a broken branch as a weapon. But if anything, it just seemed to amuse the beasts flickering before them. Tanya, caught in shock, remained rooted to the spot, eyes wide as if frozen in time. Mark, wait, Jenna cried, but the warning came too late. As soon as he charged, the creature darted forward, easy as a shadow slipping through the cracks of a door. The air throbbed with energy, thick with dread. Jenna felt a chill seep into her bones as she realized there was no escape. They were trapped not just physically, but in a web of their own fears and doubts. Each breath felt like a weight upon her chest, as if sensing her despair. The pitch-black sky opened for a moment, revealing a flicker of stars overhead. A brief glimmer of hope? Or was it a fleeting trick of the mind? Jenna didn't know. It felt like the universe was trying to reach out, offering a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. She turned to Tanya, who was just beginning to rouse from her stupor. "We need to work together," Jenna urged, hoping her words could reach through the terror clouding her friend's mind. "Together?" Tanya echoed, her voice trembling. "But we're facing monsters." "Exactly. They thrive off our fear. What if we fight them with our strength instead?" Jenna felt the fire inside her stir, unfamiliar but necessary. The realization simmered beneath her skin. They weren't mere victims trapped in a nightmare. They had power within themselves, a power born from their shared struggles and fears. With a quick glance at Mark, who was now grappling with one of the beasts, Jenna felt a renewal of purpose. The forest, dark and menacing, became a battleground, and inside her surged a phoenix-like resolve. It was time to reclaim their narrative. "Fuck this," Jenna yelled, charging in after Mark, heart pumping fiercely. "We're not going down without a fight." As she reached the nearest creature, she swung her makeshift weapon, feeling exhilaration course through her as it connected solidly, a satisfying crack slicing through the air. The creature recoiled, a shocked expression flashing across its twisted features. "Keep moving. Don't let them in your head," she shouted back to Tanya, who finally stepped forward, finding her own voice, wielding a branch with newfound determination. But just as they began to push back, the creatures started to blend into the night, becoming shadows and whispers, slipping just out of reach. The growls transformed again into that eerie language, rising in pitch and rhythm, wrapping around them like the choking vines of the forest itself. Jenna's resolve wavered. What do they want? What are they saying? Then, a sudden clarity gripped her. The creatures were revealing a truth buried within their twisted existence. The forest wasn't just watching, they were a part of it. Puppets on strings of fear she never knew were there. Beneath their feral exteriors lay a message, desperate and raw. "Can you hear that?" she called to Tanya as she backed up to regroup with her. "They're trying to speak to us. There's something else?" Tanya said, scanning the dark woods. Just as hope began to blossom, a new sound ripped through the air, a shrieking from deep within the forest. Not from the creatures but birthed from the earth itself. It was a sound so haunting, it reverberated through Jenna's bones. "Run!" Mark screamed as an immense shadow loomed over them, a force bigger than any creature yet unveiled. Terror invaded Jenna's whole being. Was it too late to break away from their deepest fears? Were they too far gone? As the ground trembled beneath them, Jenna realized they weren't just fighting the creatures. They were fighting something much bigger, something that might just consume their souls. What's next? Tanya's frantic voice tugged at Jenna's mind as the world crumbled around them. The question echoed, propelling her forward into the unknown. They had awakened something in the forest, and now they had to decide. Could they contain the release, harness it for their advantage, or would it obliterate everything they once knew? And in those rapid-fire moments of uncertainty, Jenna felt the pressure building. The truth was out there, lingering just beyond the trees, waiting to be uncovered as the forest began to quiver with promise and peril. What would they find when they dared to delve deeper into darkness? Would Jenna and her friends emerge from the nightmare, or would it swallow them whole? The ground shook violently beneath Jenna's feet, as if the very essence of the forest was angered by their presence. They had crossed a line, awakened an ancient wrath that reverberated through the roots of every tree surrounding them. "Run! Don't just stand there!" Mark yelled, urgency slicing through his voice as he pulled Tanya as they stumbled back. Jenna felt the weight of dread hanging on her, pulling at her limbs like a thick fog. Glimmers of shadow danced around them, darting just beyond the corner of her eye, almost playfully taunting the trio as they fled. Every rustle in the underbrush had teeth. Every whispering breeze carried a terrifying promise. "Where do we go?" Tanya gasped, her panic a palpable echo in the stagnant air. "Follow me," Jenna shouted instinctively, body moving before her mind could catch up. Adrenaline surged. It felt like fire was igniting her veins, powering her legs to move faster even as her heart hammered in a wild rhythm. But the forest has a way of distorting reality. bending paths and twisting trails. Every turn felt familiar but strange. They ran down a narrow path that seemed to close in, branches clawing at them like desperate hands trying to hold them back. Suddenly, the air was thick with a scent, a rancid, decaying aroma that clawed at her throat. Jenna stumbled, doubling over to gag, and in that moment of weakness, she caught sight of something in the shadows. It was watching them, a figure hovering, shapeless yet distinctly human, its face hidden in an inky blur, but the eyes, those eyes glimmered like shards of glass. "Jenna, move!" Mark's voice penetrated the fog of horror. He was pulling Tanya behind him, pushing her to keep running. Every instinct screamed for her to follow them, yet she felt drawn to the figure, a whispering call that spoke to something deep inside her that she didn't recognize. "Jenna!" Mark shouted, suddenly frantic. "It's not safe." It wasn't just the creatures anymore. It was this apparition, this ghostly silhouette that felt almost inviting. Jenna shook her head as if the action could clear the fog. The shadows around her transformed momentarily, revealing the many faces of the forest's memories, whispers of pain, sorrow, and sorrowful laughter. She remembered tales from her childhood, stories of skinwalkers woven into the fabric of local lore. The more she thought, the more she understood they weren't just monsters. They were reflections of those who wandered here before, lost souls tied to the land. "Help us!" she screamed to the shadows, taking a step forward against reason. "We don't want to hurt you. We just want to leave." The figure shifted, a breeze catching the edges of its form, nearly human but also not. It leaned closer, and Jenna caught a glimpse of its features. A sallow, gaunt face with gaudy eyes, twisted in despair. All at once she understood. It wasn't malevolent. It was lost, yearning for something it could never reclaim. "Do you wish to be freed?" she whispered, her heart racing at the possibilities dancing at the edges of their existence. She wasn't sure if the others could hear her, but the question hung like a fragile thread between them. "Jenna, please, it's not safe." Mark's shout pierced her awareness once more, panic rising like fire around them. Suddenly, the forest erupted in wails, the shadow creatures reappearing, faces twisted in anger as if she'd blasphemed against a sacred covenant. They surged forward, a tide of terror, pushing her and her friends toward an edge they might never return from. "Run," Tanya urged, her voice trembling. But Jenna found herself torn between fleeing and trying to understand what lay before her, the lost souls versus her looming nightmares. As the creatures advanced, Jenna made a choice. With a deep breath, she turned her back on the shadow figure, heart pumping with defiance. "We won't let you take us." The words left her lips, a war cry against terror. But she sensed a breach, a crack in the foundations of their reality. With the ground rumbling and shadows chasing close behind, Jenna could feel this was only the beginning of what awaited. They had awakened something, but now they had to decide what resonance this discovery would bring. Would they forge ahead into the depths of truth, or turn back to the comfort of denial? "What if it's too late?" she thought as they sprinted deeper into the unseen. In the darkness that swallowed them whole, Jenna sensed an even deeper darkness rising, its hunger palpable. What awaited them further? The forest trembled beneath them, teasing secrets that could shatter everything they believed about fear and reality alike. Jenna felt her heart race, pounding against her ribcage like a trapped bird trying to escape. She and her friends were desperately trying to navigate through an unending tangle of branches and shadows. The darkness seemed alive, breathing around them, whispering secrets too horrific to comprehend. The growls of the creatures had transformed into an unsettling silence, pressing down on them like a weight. Tanya's voice trembled, fear evident as she scanned the murky woods. "What do we do?" "Stay close," Jenna barked, her voice steady despite the quivering in her hands. They needed to stick together to draw strength from one another. They had survived thus far. They could do it again. Just then, a flickering light caught their attention, a warm glow peeking through the dense foliage ahead. "Do you see that?" Mark pointed, hope crashing like a wave against the despair building within them. "It has to be a way out." Tanner breathed, her eyes brightening momentarily with the spark of possibility. But Jenna hesitated, sensing the foreboding presence swirling around them. The forest felt more hostile than ever, a predator cloaked in darkness. "Wait," Jenna said, sensing danger lurking behind the glow of the fire. She felt a tightening of her stomach, like dread wrapping around her heart. But the others pressed on, spurred by desperation. Jenna followed, pushing through the underbrush into a small clearing where flames danced. It was alive, crackling and snapping like the breaths of a wounded beast. For a fleeting moment, relief washed over Jenna as they stumbled toward it. The fire provided warmth, sanctuary from the horror that lurked just beyond the light. But as they got closer, the shadows shifted. What they thought was salvation morphed into something more sinister. Figures emerged from the darkness surrounding the fire, a circle of spectral shapes, eyes glinting with malice and curiosity. Jenna felt the ground shift beneath her as the specters closed in. "Who are you?" Mark cried, protective instincts bubbling up. "What do you want with us?" Their eyes glowed, filled with a hunger that felt too familiar, too primal. The air thickened with tension as one of the figures stepped forward. "You've awakened us," it hissed, voice a chilling echo that sent shivers coursing through Jenna. "You trespassed on sacred grounds." Sacred? Jenna felt the weight of the word in her gut. "We didn't mean any harm." The figure tilted its head. "Restless spirits, trapped between worlds you seek to flee. But what if your greatest horrors lie within?" Suddenly, the night blossomed with shadows, twisting and bending as whispers echoed through their minds. Each shadow danced with memories, fears long buried, mistakes that haunted them, all flashing before their eyes like a twisted slideshow of pain. "I can't take this," Tanya shrieked, covering her ears. "Make it stop." Mark held onto her, eyes wide with understanding. They had ventured deep into their personal nightmares, faced their darkest fears in a manifestation they could no longer ignore. Jenna's heart raced as she realized. This was the forest's truth. "You've come to confront what you fear most," the lead figure said, its eyes boring into Jenna's soul. "But can you face the truths buried deep? Or will you succumb to your darkest imaginings?" Jenna felt the thread of hope twist within her. They could no longer run from the Skinwalker or from whatever monsters lay within themselves. They had to confront their fears, face the shadows head-on. "I refuse to be defined by fear," Jenna shouted, her voice breaking the silence that hung heavy. "We all have something dark inside, but we can rise above it. We are more than what haunts us." As if in response to her words, the spectral figures flickered, their glowing eyes shifting, uncertainty coloring their forms. "You think you can conquer what we have become?" one asked, hovering closer, its gaze undeniably piercing. "Yes." Mark backed her up, fire igniting in his eyes. "We're not going to let you take us down." Jenna took a deep breath, recollecting the moments of camaraderie. Shared among them joy, laughter, shared struggles. Those weren't just memories. They were armor. Together, we're stronger than our fears. The shadows wavered, uncertainty churning in their depths as Jenna, Tanya, and Mark formed a circle, holding hands, grounding one another. They would not let their past define them or bind them to darkness. With sheer determination, they turned toward the shadows, standing firm. "We release you," Jenna cried, squeezing her friend's hands tightly. "We will not be your prisons." In that electrifying moment, a surge of light emanated from their joined hands, glowing as if fueled by their unity. The figures hesitated, caught between fear and desperation, and before their very eyes, the darkness began to dissipate as a bright, white light enveloped them. The growls faded, and for the first time, Jenna felt a profound silence wash over her, releasing each spirit trapped by its darkness. As the light swirled around them, Jenna knew that they'd broken the cycle. The creature's hold was fading, and the forest itself seemed to exhale. The last vestiges of shadows shrank away, and from that light, Jenna felt something shift within her. Embracing her fears and casting them away, it became crystal clear. They were not haunted. They were survivors. Silence enveloped the clearing, and the fire flared high one last time before winking out, leaving behind a profound tranquility. And as the dawning sun crept over the horizon, casting ribbons of gold through the trees, Jenna released a breath she didn't know she was holding. They had emerged from the nightmare not without scars, but with a new understanding of what it meant to confront the darkness within. They turned to one another, eyes brightening with the dawn. There was still a journey ahead, a path to walk, with the weight of their pasts. But now they had the strength to carry it together. "Let us go home," Jenna said, feeling a lightness she had never known. Together, as they stepped forward into the emerging day, promising themselves to face whatever came their way, a chorus of whispers floated through the woods, echoing gratitude from the spirits they had freed. The forest, once a dark memory, became a testament of resilience, a reminder, as vibrant as the morning light breaking through, that they could brave any darkness life may bring, and with purpose, they descended the path back home, intent on nurturing the strength they discovered within, knowing they carried with them the echoes of spirits transformed, forever changed. Now is the time to take charge of your own stories. Subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive thrillers that will surely grip your heart. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Make sure to flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this epic conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who love chilling tales. They need to see the stunning finish. Your support means everything to us. Don't let this moment slip away.